Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, AcreForward, Change the Way You Work to Improve Profitability for Every Field, presented by Taranis, a company committed to protecting the future of agricultural prosperity through full-service, leaf-level data capture that allows crop advisors and growers to attain faster decision-making, smarter use of resources, and higher profitability. I'm Larry Elward, the custom content editor for Meister Media Worldwide, the publisher of Crop Life magazine. The global population is expected to increase by 2.2 billion by 2050, which means farmers will need to grow about 70% more food than what is now produced. In this webinar, you'll hear from advisors firsthand about how to combat labor shortages and rising costs of inputs while increasing share of the farm and accelerating profitability for every field, all without adding to your plate. The webinar has been approved for 1/2 CEU credit in Precision Ag from CCA. To receive credit, you must watch the entire webinar. A QR code for reporting your credit will be provided at the end of the webinar. You simply scan the QR code and submit it. We'll also have some time for questions at the end of the webinar. So if you'd like to ask a question anytime during the presentation, just type it in the question pane at the lower corner of your screen and click submit. And all questions will be addressed at the end of the presentation. Before we begin, I'd like to introduce Mike DiPaolo, who will moderate the discussion among our panelists today. Mike is the Chief Commercial Officer for Taranis and oversees global sales, regional marketing, and customer success. He's also serves on the board for Agronomy, Indiana, and is a member of the Agricultural Retailers Association. Prior to joining Taranis, he served in leadership positions with the agricultural industry with companies such as Jensen, Southern States Cooperative, Farmer's Edge, and Farm Wizard. Now I'm going to hand it off to Mike, who is going to give a brief overview of Taranis business and introduce the panelists. Mike, welcome.
Thank you very much for the introduction, Larry, and want to thank the audience and our panelists for the opportunity to talk a little bit about obviously what Taranis does and the technology services that we're bringing to bear to help overcome some of the hurdles and help our retailers and growers achieve the success that they deserve and desire. And we're going to talk a little bit about those hurdles and hear from our panelists, not just how they use Taranis, but with their experience and in their organizations. What are the ways what are the things that they're doing to make it better every day, to have profitable yield and be an employer of choice? So with that, yes, everything we do here at Taranis is to move the acre forward. In fact, because we have leaf level, high resolution imagery across millions of acres, we literally start from the acre moving forward. That's just simply in our DNA. It's the way we think and it's the way we work. But how did we come into this technology? What brought us to where we are today? Simply put, we have a proud legacy of farming and technological entrepreneurs that looked at these industry hurdles, which I think we'll hear about today. So, how many of you out there listening to this or viewing this are dealing with rising input and labor costs? How hard is it to find good people? Farm productivity as a result of many changing things, including those costs. We all want to find a way to get more from less and do so in a way that preserves our local environment for the next generation. We see things like consolidation within the value chain. Maybe in some cases, while technology is getting better, choice and options sometimes are fewer. We can see misaligned incentives because the value chain, and many value chains are imperfect in communicating economic signals. We see a battle for farm gate influence with technology and just mediums like what we have today. The ability to reach out to people. Everyone wants to help and influence the farmer, but also position their services and their capabilities. And then finally, we think about regulatory pressure or freedom to operate. We live in a world where people are better connected, they're becoming better connected, and they're more interested in how their food is produced. So with that, how do you move an industry forward? How do you navigate this? And we're going to hear from three great panelists today about that. But as Tyrannus, when we think about it, we understand that when you think about agriculture, it's really an applied art that uses a lot of science. And we have a lot of intuition and a lot of great tradition that's helped us move an industry to where it is today. When you think about all the innovations and all the people that have existed to bring forth the kind of food and then the volume and quality that we can produce today, it's absolutely amazing. We also know that we can unlock further growth, and we need to create even more prosperity, not just for those who in the food chain, but for those who produce it as well. So we're 100% focused on helping growers and their advisors demonstrate more of that value. And the reason for that is no one farms alone. We have rural communities that come together, they work well together, and it's an ecosystem of equipment providers, agricultural input retailers, crop advisors, and so on that are bringing their talents and resources together to ensure that profitable and optimum yield is achieved. Where we come in is we want to facilitate that interconnectedness within particularly the crop retailer and the grower, but we do so with what we call full service leaf level insight delivery. And that is how we introduce this concept of crop intelligence. So we do believe that scouting has now moved into a new era. The technology, the artificial intelligence, the aerial and imagery capture capabilities, some of the resources that we've been able to put together with our customer partners has ushered us into a new era of crop intelligence. Here at Tyrannus, if you're listening, I'll describe it if you can see it on the screen. We do things at sub-millimeter resolution. That means no matter where corn, soybean, cotton, crops like that are grown, we are able, with our partners, to provide a full end-to-end service of high-definition imagery acquisition. I am talking sub-millimeter resolution, centimeter resolution simultaneously. What does that mean? It means that from the air, we can literally count the spots on a ladybug. That's how close this is. We can see your business card and read it if it were on the ground. What does that do? If you think about scouting crops, and we're going to hear about those challenges today, that means within seconds, over millions of plants, we're able to count and understand gaps and stand count, nutrient deficiencies, literal areas of defoliation to understand the economic threshold, say in soybeans, a defoliated leaf within millions of soybean acres. We can see disease, early and existing visual signs, as well as weed genus and species. We layer over that a full view at a centimeter level of the surrounding acreage so you can get a context. And then we bring in some of the best satellite resources to look for anomalies. So within our screens, in a moment, you can look at traditional satellite NDVI if you still choose to, but you don't have to wonder what that blob looks like. You can click and in an instant, you can see plants as if you were standing over them. So what I'm saying here is think about FaceTime for your fields or Ring doorbell for your farm. We're providing that through your retailer and advisor of choice. So how do we deliver that? We basically have corn and soybean missions in advanced and pro plus packages, and we're arriving on a frequent basis throughout the most critical time through your growing season. So your advisor and you as a grower can come together and understand, where did I get a healthy start? Where do I have threats that need to be dealt with? And then as I think about next season, how do all of these threats throughout the year, coupled with the start that I got, the hybrid that I selected, how does that change what I need to do for next season? This is game tape for the best advisors and farmers to not only make better decisions in season, but to improve year after year. So the question for everyone here, and what we're going to talk about today, is what's holding you back? Is it lack of manpower? Is it hard to find people? How about time? Another way to look at that is, how do you prioritize what's important, because time's limited? And what about interaction and the engagement you'd like to have with growers? So today I'm proud to present, and I want to introduce individually each one of our panelists. They have a wide and deep background in serving growers and farmers in very different parts of the country, but I think you're going to hear a lot of commonality, whether it's Illinois, Nebraska, or Kansas. To start with, I'd like to introduce Randy Jensen with Central Valley Ag Co-op. Good afternoon, Randy. Thank you for joining us. If you would, please just introduce yourself, your role, and share with us, what is it about CVA, Central Valley Ag, that's distinctive and unique, and why do growers choose to partner with you?
Thank you, Mike. So a little bit about myself. I've been in the industry for close to 30 years now. I've been probably all facets of it. Started out as an operator, went to sales, was in management, was in precision ag. So pretty much been through the whole thing of it. Central Valley Ag is a large full service cooperative. We go across northwest Iowa into eastern Nebraska and into north central Kansas. Have about 60 locations. What makes CVA unique is just we are able to offer a lot of different services and products to our growers. Our scale gives us some advantages that we can offer things that other retailers can't. We were one of the first to look at the Tyrannus product out there and have moved forward with it. We're also involved with water management, with probes, crop modeling, analytics, spatial profit maps, variable rate technology, nitrogen seeding, PK lime, pretty much a full service on the technology side. Have an equipment division so we can take it from the beginning to the end.
Well, thank you for that, Randy. That's there's a lot of complexity, no doubt, not only with just the different technologies, but all the biological and weather variables that you and your growers contend with. And I look forward to diving a little deeper. We're going to move over here to Mr. Tim Spector, who is an agronomy division manager with Pride Ag Resources. Good afternoon, Tim. What sets Pride Ag apart? And tell us a little about your background and what makes Pride Ag an employer and service provider of choice in your area.
Well, Pride Ag, we sit in southwest Kansas, and anybody's got extra water, please send it our way. We cover about a 140-mile radius, and the company's been in business for over 105 years. Very profitable, strong balance sheets, which is attractive for new employees. I've worked with a lot of cooperatives in my career. I spent most of my time with Winfield as regional director in the southern U.S., but I didn't like air flying too much. At Dodge City, it used to be Dodge City Co-op, now Pride Ag Resources. What we offer, I say, versus our competition is we've taken a different approach at the farm gate. We're very transparent with information from the standpoints as markets move in the commodity side of it, fertilizer. Our farmers are updated right out the gate. We separate our sales group by the offerings they can take to the farmers. The Tyrannus piece, that's allowing my salesmen to cover 2 to 3 times the acre without having to spend 3 or 4 hours per field walking them. And we have seen that bring us new customers just by having that tool in the arsenal. We got a lot of farmers, say 5,000 plus, but the guys in that 10,000 acre plus, it really got their attention because they can see the whole field within 24 hours versus when, consultants, we got a lot of consultants. When the consultants go in the field, they're just checking a piece of the field. They're not looking at the whole thing. Back up, I'm not saying we're trying to displace consultants. It's just another tool to where we can get onto issues quicker than the norm. Like I said, Pride Ag is a good company. When we sit down with new hires, and I've hired 3 in the past 6 months, and they look at the offerings that we bring to the farm gate, it makes the process a lot easier. We're separating from just having a price and a product and moving forward.
Yeah, I think, Tim, thank you for that. I'm going to come back to some of those key points because it's harder. Not only is the demand for qualified people that can serve our farmers and growers higher than ever, but the supply is limited. So being differentiated and providing the tools to scale and really show your customers that not only do you know them at a detail level, but you're engaging on a constant basis and leveraging how technology can make your people better. I think that's going to be a pretty big part of what we talk about here today. I will say for our audience listening, Brian, I'm coming to you in a second. We are taking questions, so bear with us and we'll get through those and I'll weave them into the conversation as we go. Before we take questions and go a little bit further here, I do want to thank and introduce Brian Wambeke for coming all the way from Pearl City Elevator there in Illinois. He's the Vice President of Agronomy. Brian, same for you. What sets Pearl City Elevator apart? And tell us a little about you and the things that you're trying to do for your growers there in Illinois and Wisconsin.
Well, thank you, Mike. I really appreciate the time today. For us as Pearl City Elevator, we've been in business working with growers for 105 years now. We're a multi-department cooperative in energy, feed, grain, and agronomy. And our agronomy side is multifaceted of the offerings that we bring our growers. We've got 6 full-time locations from an agronomy standpoint, covering northern Illinois and southern Wisconsin. And I think what separates Pearl City Elevator from others in our area is, first the offerings that we have, but then, bringing a tailored approach for each grower. We have, aspects of our area that's got a fair amount of rolling ground, other areas that are on the flatter side, and we also have a fair amount of dairy, especially in the southern Wisconsin area. And, so it just allows us to bring those offerings. We've led with precision for many years, feel we lead that in our market area very well. Know we've got to continue to grow with that. And, I looked at Taranis in the beginning of this to help us in growing our seed business. We recognize from our side that there's a lot of things we need to be doing with seed while that spring operation is going on. And we've been utilizing that for, more efficient hands on the ground. But with that, we're really seeing, as we're working with getting top talent, either through our internship program or bringing new employees on, that this gives us another means to, recruit from that standpoint. And, that's a side benefit that we had come on from our side. Our primary reason for bringing Taranis on was to continue to develop an even more in-depth relationship with our growers. We work with about 600 individual farm organizations in this part of the world, and just very, very fortunate to lead that. My background, I worked on the retail side, also ran a machine, a floater for a while. I got into the sales and then went into the distribution side, and also finished that portion with Winfield myself, and have been with Pearl City Elevator, leading our agronomy team for the past 5 years now.
Oh, that's really great. And we do have some questions coming in. I will get to them here in a minute. I'd like to go a little bit further because we're talking about, we've done some introductions. We're talking about precision, technology, differentiation, labor. Brian, since I just have you here and you're not on mute yet, tell me a little bit more about, people are probably wondering about Taranis, and that's fine. And I always explain that we are providing crop intelligence. We are digitizing or creating a digital twin of every field. So whether you're on your phone or your computer, you're able to look at that acre as if you were standing there and understand what's happened in the past. So as Tim said, we're not replacing people. We're trying to make people better and move things forward. How does Pearl City look at technologies like this? And how do you differentiate? And how do you make sure that you get the value attributed to you that you provide? Because I'm not sure if you get thank you notes when things are really going well on the acre. But we probably get calls when they're not. So how do you look at this technology? How do you look at transparency, visibility? And how is this changing what Pearl City's doing with its customers?
Well, from our side, I think the first part is, in most cases, the field is doing real well to begin with, and I think that's, part of it is, when we get a report card back, instantly of seeing that, hey, the vast majority of this field is doing very well. And it helps us manage our time to go to the spots to ground truth where there might be an issue from that perspective. But the other thing that it's bringing for us is to help us manage our time, knowing what segments we need to be in, paying attention to if there is a germination emergence issue or disease issue or weeds in some cases. And we've seen different cases along those lines. And we're on the earlier side of working with Taranis compared to our other two that are on the panel. But it brings confidence also to our team, as we get more in depth with this of understanding what's there. I look at it as key to get this information to our growers as soon as possible. They're very, very busy organizations doing a lot of multitasking, especially during that front side of the crop development. And this just really helps us from that standpoint of managing our time. And, we're just starting to grow with this from our side.
Absolutely. We're going to get into some details here. So, Brian, this question is for you, and then I would like to have Randy and Tim weigh in next. Is, how long have you been using Taranis? For some of you, it's newer. Others of you, we've really been commercial for the last 3 years, so everybody's got a different level of experience here. But some of the questions I'm seeing, one is, we'll start with Brian, and then maybe we'll move to Randy and then Tim. How are you using the technologies that Taranis has to sell seed, to sell products, to sell your services?
Yeah. Sorry there, Mike. So 2 growing seasons ago, we had just a test run, and to be honest, we started out into it late. I think that what that taught us on the front side there is we needed to have a better plan. So we came into this past year and we recognized that during the spring season, our full-time salespeople are very, very busy themselves. So we relied on our staff who assists and supports our sales team in implementing that. And, we're still starting on the small side of this. We're learning from this. And I think that's the one key that I would say to anybody that would be looking at this is, anytime you change cell phones, there's a new grade, new upgrade, there is some difficulty that comes on the front side. And, you change ERP systems or anything like that. And we experienced a little bit of that. But I think it's really key for us as Pearl City Elevator to be working very close with Taranis. We're very open both ways of how we can improve from that. But from that, we're utilizing this to bring information to our growers that in some cases we're able to react to that and resolve those issues immediately in this crop year. In other cases, it's information we can utilize for the future. And there's things we've stumbled across with that. We had one field that had half of it was applied having a sulfur product in the mix, and the other half did not. And it was amazing what we picked up with that just by accident by utilizing Taranis. That's helping us develop markets that we hadn't even really planned on. But ultimately, we're utilizing it to grow all aspects of our agronomy side.
It's really great. Randy and Tim, thank you for being here as well. Some of the questions are coming in is, how is this used? What do you see? What are some examples? What's been your experience? And I think everybody here also has different business models on, do you charge for it? Is the fee different? But, what are the values that you're providing? So, Randy, I think you've had the most experience of our panelists on this. Maybe I'll start with you. How do you deploy the technologies and the dashboards and the visuals with Taranis within your team? And what does that look like within your programs and services to your growers?
So we have been working with Taranis, I think, for 4 years, or this will be our 4th year coming up with it. So we started at about the beginning when Taranis was launched to retail. Part of my position is to work with new technology and be kind of the gatekeeper as it goes forward. And we have been working forward with it. So a guy an agronomist or a grower is able to get a snapshot view of his operation or of the fields that he has signed up in Taranis right away every morning. You can look on the computer, get the snapshot, go to that dashboard, see where it's at. The push notifications on the phone are probably the most useful. As you're having your morning coffee, 6 o'clock in the morning, that push notification comes through what fields have new imagery or drone reports coming into it. So that works about as good as anything, is just the push notifications coming into us.
And so those notifications, just for those who are the uninitiated, what are the things that you're seeing when we talk about stand count? How do you use that, or weed severity or weed species? Describe for somebody who hasn't seen it before, what does it look like? How is your team using that with the customer?
So with the stand counts, there's bubbles across the field with the count. It'll say 33 or 24, so it's divided by 1,000 or times 1,000. Excuse me. But one of the examples that we had last spring is we had a field, 2 different hybrids in it. It was split. It was a quarter split in half. Our grower was still planting beans, and we had the stand count flight go over by the drone. And one field was normal and one field was drastically less. In fact, everyone thought it was an error with the drone when we all saw it. It was so drastic. But we were able to go out there that afternoon. In fact, our grower is still planting soybeans, and we were able to identify that there was nothing wrong with the drone. We had one hybrid that just failed to come up. We were able to get the seed reps out there, get the guy replant seed. As soon as he was done with the field he was planting in, he could roll right back into a replant. What's a replant worth getting it done a week to 10 days sooner than before a guy would have caught it? By the time he'd have finished planting and start driving around and seeing what's going on, we were just able to pick it up while action could be taken that much sooner. Another example that we had, I've had an argument with one of our scouts. The average stand count.
That never happens, right? All scouts agree, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Stand count was quite a bit lower in the Tyrannus report versus what he counted. Turned out it was a variable rate planted field, and he went to the very best part of the field next to the pivot. He didn't take into account the corners and where we had reduced the stand. So it did come out, and I was able to show him when I showed him the as planted report versus the Tyrannus report that it pretty much agreed to what the planter dropped. So it's really neat seeing these things out there at that leaf level technology.
Oh, thank you for that. Yeah, I think, again, I'm going to move to Tim here because, Tim, you selected to work with this, and I want to kind of bounce off of you how you look at these insights. Just to quickly hit this stand count concept, for those of you who haven't seen it or you're listening or watching this webinar and hearing about this for the first time, when we're scanning your acres, we're counting many, many plants versus a scout. It takes probably 45, 50 minutes to get the 8 points to do the collection. And you could do the best that you can. But when you allow imagery and artificial intelligence to count and understand what's really happening at the acre and digitize that, what's nice about this technology, Randy, is if they question it, with a click of a button, you're looking at high definition imagery of each field. So while the computer's doing the work for you and you can see the count, you can dig in and look at the various factors around it and start to understand, is it a planter issue, hybrid issue, seed treatment issue, various different things. And imagine now having that across 600 customers, 10,000 growers that CVA has, and being able to understand with the farmer, what are the things that made you successful? Because nothing's better than a good start. If you want a strong finish, you really need a good start. And you're able to see that across thousands of growers while you start with a cup of coffee. And that's, to me, it's amazing. And I take it for granted that with a click of a button, I could look at those fields here with you, Randy, and we could go back and have a conversation about it. It's really game tape for improving performance. So Tim, glad you're hanging in there with us over there in Kansas. Curious, when you think about these technologies in your teams, what excites you? What's a differentiator for you? and how are you looking to improve your business this season?
Well, we just started with Tyrannus last April, so we got a late start on it. And I used our board as our guinea pigs, and they signed on to it. And back to Randy's comment about stand count, one of our farmers come in and his scout had just checked his stand count, and he had 32,000 plants per acre. And the farmers intended to plant 27. He needed to buy more fertilizer. And I said, well, wait a minute, let's look at it. And we pulled it up, and he was exactly 27,235 per acre average. So with that, had we not had the Tyrannus tool, he'd have spent a lot more money he didn't need to. And where we were getting bang for our buck, when we got in season disease pressure, we had another large operation. Fields were checked 2 days prior, no bug activity. We had to fly over, and they had a lot of bugs. And the salesman took them back out in the field, and they admitted that saved them a lot of money, so they get it treated on the front end before all the damage is done. In our world, we'll say we're a dry environment, so disease, insects become a real deal. We need to be able to spot them early on. Moisture is a limiting factor. And when the farmers see the detail of the pictures on their whole field and they can click any dot, then the program starts selling itself. And we've even gotten some inquiries from consultants if they can join in with us so they can check 32,000 acres versus 16 and use some of it as your virtual salesman out there checking the fields. So
it's amazing what transparency can do. And you had mentioned, I think, in some of our conversations, how important transparency is with the relationships with the farmers. Tell me a little bit more about, how you look at transparency and what you're doing with your team, what you expect to be better for your growers going forward as this technology is available.
Well, I think where this really fits, and for my organization, I don't care how good you are coming out of college, if you're the younger group, there's always a benefit of doubt with the farmers. They want to call somebody else to verify. They've got this in their hip pocket, especially when they're first starting out with us. We fly those acres. I cover that expenses. I figure that's an investment in that salesman. And I'll do that for the first year, maybe the second year. One, he's validating by science what he's recommending to treat that field. So that elevates him in the mind of that farmer. And once they see it, you go turn it off, they want it back, is what we're looking at. But I think you can look at it as one to incorporate into your scouting program. I look at it as a virtual salesman. From the standpoint, you help develop people and you've got the science and data right there with you. And pictures do not lie. Once the farmer sees that, he can go to bed at night knowing I invested my money wisely.
See, that's well said. It's peace of mind, right? Yeah. It's peace of mind on every acre. It creates trust in a relationship. By the way, when we talk about sales, sometimes like that, I provide a service I don't sell. Let's open that up a little bit. And I want to go to Brian here. When we talk about selling, Tim, what we've talked about in the past and what I hear you saying, you're demonstrating that you're creating economic value and opportunity with your decisions, advice, and service with the grower. And you're being rewarded with that in the relationship for the, new purchases, for their inputs, loyalty. And those are important things because those economic indicators are really important to helping us know whether we're doing the right things or not. And in many cases, you don't get a thank you note for when an application is done well, or you don't know. What you can't see can hurt you. And what Tyrannus and what we're trying to do together with you is make sure that we're showing all the great work that's done by advisors for the growers and that growers have that peace of mind. So I'm glad you brought that up. Brian, I have a question here, and it relates to, Tim covered some of it. There's a question, do you sell Tyrannus? How does Tyrannus get to a grower? What are you doing? How do you, and I think everybody's got a different approach of this. Obviously, we see ourselves not as the lead brand, but rather an enabler for the things that you're doing. But just tell everyone here, how are you taking it out to your farmers, and what does that look like to the grower? How do you see this? Is this an investment, a cost, a pass through? How are you looking at this technology and what it does for your teams?
Well, in our case, Mike, I'm going to say it's a little bit of all of the above. We have it as just open as a part, a service charge for that we are absorbing, a little bit of that for our really valued growers. But more so where we're using it is bringing together an overall package that's bringing a much higher value to our growers, where we're utilizing, a portion of it is with the seed, with our scouting services, then finishing that up with, with fungicides over the top where it's needed, and bringing a full service package together as a package together. And I think that's where we have seen the most success, and our growers have seen the best success is an overall package. But then, we'll also do the individualized for those that want to get a feel of it from that, and for our sales team themselves to get, more comfortable with the package from that part. But so for us, it's a blend of all of those together.
That's pretty wise. I think we look at it. The reason I'm glad to take that question and talk about it is this isn't just a product you take on the shelf and hey, let's look at this, Mr. Grower. It's something you need. There's so much value in the relationship and the engagement between, say, Pearl City Elevator and a farmer and a grower and what we're doing here. So it's a very visual, tangible way to bring together all the services that a retailer and an advisor provides and put those capabilities on display in a very trusting and transparent way. And I think at ARA, I heard that retailers today, margins aren't exactly expanding, probably not through 23 and 24. So we have to find ways to not only create more value together with the farmer, but to show where that value is and highlight the services and receive the real value for the services that are provided. When you think about 23, 24, the economy that's in front of us, how does this and other technologies help you? And maybe what do you even worry about for the team that you've got as you look at the environment going forward? Brian.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, Mike.
Sorry, yeah.
So, from our side, we were going into, obviously what I'm going to call our second full year, and we're definitely expanding that portion with, the package and getting to understand that. And, we had growers that, we wondered if they were going to re-sign up, just because, it's new. And to our satisfaction, we had, a high percentage of them re-sign up and more acres coming with that. And, I think that the part for us that we look at is we got to have a plan and make sure that you understand how to execute that plan. And that's the most critical part of this, is to make sure that we get the information to the grower as quick as possible. The tools that are provided in this are very, very user-friendly. But, there's a lot of growers that just want us to be monitoring this for them and report this back to them. And so it brings all aspects of it from that standpoint.
Yeah, I think expectations are becoming lesser, even if sometimes the macro environment around agriculture gets tighter. Tim, as you look at from your perspective, what does 23, 24 start to look like for you? And what are some of the challenges that the Pride Ag Resources is preparing for as you go into the season?
Right now, we've got a lot of indecision if we're going to plant corn or milo. It all has to gears around the lack of moisture. I think since last June, we've had less than 3 inches of rain. A lot of the crops burned up, even some of our Tyrannus acres. We stopped flights mid-June because Mother Nature took care of all the weeds and the crops. So right now, it's the indecision. What we're going to have on corn acres, milo acres. If we get some of the moisture between now and I'd say the end of February, mid-March, it'd be nice to have Randy's 10 inches of snow. But if we get a significant moisture level, then we start seeing the corn acres come back. And our market is corn, milo, and wheat. This far west, very little soybeans. So that's the crops we work with. That's our biggest challenge. But at the end of the day, there's going to be corn planted. There's going to be milo planted. And we have to be in front on those acres. And right now, our corn seed sales are higher than they were last year, so that's a good indicator. But that can change on a dime if we don't pick up some moisture. That's the only thing that's holding up.
No, absolutely. And I think we're never short of challenges in retail. And I think what I like about what we do here at Taranis and having been in retail and being here is we're laser focused on helping you overcome those obstacles. And I'm sure there are other partners that you have out there, Tim, as you think about it, that are focused to help you get through some of these challenges. But that's something that we think about every day. And hopefully this technology will continue to help you grow and rise the level of service that your growers are expecting. Randy, as you think about the growers that you have, I think CVA, how many farmers would you say the CVA is servicing within a year?
Servicing within a year, it's a number I really don't have a hand on, but I would say with Taranis, we are probably servicing 50 this past year. Probably farmers that we touch in our precision ag program, a couple thousand. So we have room to go. We are offering Taranis as a service. We are combining it in different packages. We might, at some places we have it combined with traditional scouting. Other places we have it combined with crop modeling programs. CVA is probably unique here that we have 9 sales regions. So our regional managers have the flexibility to make the packages that make the most sense for their areas.
Because one size doesn't fit all, right? So as you think about managing large teams and lots of acres, these kinds of technologies are force multipliers for you to help know where to go and what to do. So, maybe Brian, you manage a pretty good sized team. You've done this for a long time. What are some of the biggest challenges when it comes to identifying talent and then managing and coaching up a good advisory team for your grower base?
Well, when it comes to talent, all of them have their own personalities and their own interests. And that's what's really cool about agriculture is bringing that blend together. We've got a team that, some that are pretty conservative. And, the first thing I seen as we started to talk about the possibilities of utilizing Taranis in there is, that first, concern of, are you trying to replace what I'm doing? And, that was one of them, that was there. The second thing that, we heard is you're adding more stuff to our plate. And as we walk through this, to reemphasize with them that ultimately it is to allow our sales team to be more efficient, to understand where the challenges are. And very honestly, in our situation, to help develop our young talent that's coming on and bring confidence to them working with their experienced sales team and bringing a bond between them, along with obviously our ultimate goal of the value that we are bringing our growers and making sure that we're growing the best crop we possibly can in this part of the area. It's very fortunate we have very, very productive ground with growers that have high expectations and have pushed us hard from a standpoint of bringing new technology to them to differentiate them from others as they're securing more ground.
That makes a lot of sense. Tim, as you think about it, I know we used to have a standard of people being 30 years, 40 years in roles. And now we're seeing not only generational changes within the retail service side, but even farms and growers, generations, things are changing hands. So when you see those changes within not only your own staff, but within the market and the grower audience, how are you looking at making sure that people are coming up to speed and they have good connections with the growers there in Kansas, Tim?
Well, we have a weekly training regime between now and planting season. But you've got to use tools and unique offerings. We're into the drone spraying in the spring, not the small drones, but the mini helicopter type size. Constantly training. I don't care if you're 50 years old or you're 25 years old, there's always something new to learn as fast as technology is coming. And it's our job to disseminate that clutter that we get. Everybody's got something unique. Disseminate that clutter. What we recommend is going to fit best for our producers. And to me, if you can validate what you're doing and base it off science, you're going to win the game long term. This is a science mechanism. I don't care who you are, who you're competing against. You fly that drone and you can zero down any inch of that field and see what the problems are. You're going to win that game. Because every farmer that's looked at the pictures, they're like, wow, I didn't know I had that problem. 75% of our customers have their own spray rigs. And let's say they're going out to spray fields 1 through 20. And we do the drone flights and we find out you got a bigger weed issue on fields 13, 14. They just changed their pattern up. Because if they went their regular schedule, by the time they got to those, they're going to have to change the entire tank mix or possibly look at a rescue situation. So I'm big on science and data. And if you can validate what you're representing, you will win the game.
Tim, I think that's really great. And Randy, I want to talk about this since you've been part of that for 4 years. When we talk about stand counter, we talk about drones. Also, for those listening in, these gentlemen, while they're capable and they have staffs that can do so, when you work with Taranis, you never have to touch the drones. You receive the imagery. The only things that we need, other than the partnership, of course, is field boundaries and planting dates. And then you receive these missions and the results of these missions throughout the season so you can be better. But Randy, you've had a lot of experience with it. When I joined Taranis, what got me excited is not just the quality of the imagery, which is still just amazing, and I'm fortunate to be able to work with it. But when you have, as Tim just said, 120 or 1,000 fields, and you know which ones have a great start, which ones don't, where they have issues, where you have more weeds, particular types of weeds. I mean, with a click of a button, you can see where you have different species of weeds and in what severity, or you can see where you have disease, or you can see where you have a strong start. How is that technology, when you think about it, changing how you work and how your teams work?
It's making us more of a partner with the grower. We are able to glean insights to those fields before our growers can. A couple years ago, one of the first fields we had on Taranis, we had a hail event come through the area, and I called our grower on it, and I said, did you have a hail event go through? You may want to call your insurance adjuster. And he said, no, it didn't have any hail. We were good. A week later, he called me up and said, Randy, we had hail go through that field. So, I mean, it's just you're able to glean these insights and help the growers long before you can see it just driving around the windshield scouting, or even where we have our scheduled scouting program. If the event like that hail happened the day after our scout was there, yes, it's going to be a week before our scout will see that. So yes, it's just the timing, the anomaly images. It's a force multiplier for our scouts. Instead of going through the whole field, what's going on, and maybe randomly hitting the spot, they know where to go look. Especially you get into a cornfield in July where it's tall corn, you have no clue where you're at in these fields. But you can have that blue dot on your phone and you can navigate right to where you need to go look and see what's going on in these fields. So it's just a force multiplier, and it is giving us a better knowledge of our growers' fields, making us a more intimate partner.
I really like that. And who wouldn't want that? Let this technology, let the handheld, let the web app do a lot of that work for you, the collecting of information, the organizing, the analyzing, and then you go where you can create the value and be the subject matter expert, right? Rather than collect all this information, work with it and really make a difference. As a side note, I remember, we've seen some hail. I remember the first time. It was early on when I had joined Taranis, those hail fields that you talked about. And what we got confused is it threw off some of the analytics. Why is that look that way? What's wrong with the stand count? Why is the satellite anomaly look a certain way? And when we dove in, Randy, in that example, it's really bizarre to take an aerial view of what looks like green splatter all over brown dirt. And you don't know what it is the first time you see it. But then when you see it, you start to recognize those patterns. And it's amazing because you can call that customer and see it before they can. And today, farmers farm all over, and they can't be everywhere. You can't be everywhere. So you also, gentlemen, you have the freedom to share this directly with the grower where they have access to the handheld. So even if they see things before your people, you can be the first to know. Brian, how do you look at how the grower interacts with it and how you interact with it and what that does for the relationship, especially as growers get bigger and everyone gets busier here as we go into 2023?
Well, and I think that's a key part that you bring up there, Mike. That our larger growers, they're running a large footprint, trying to be as efficient as what they possibly can from that side. And this allows for, simultaneous for them to be able to identify stuff, but also for our, when we're able to go onto the tools from the online side, to be able to sort that of fields that need attention, and a lot of the tools that are there for both for our growers and for our group to be able to interact and understand where that importance is from that side. And we utilized a little bit of the 3-pass program and some of the 5-pass program, and we used the 5-pass program for those growers that were looking for a more in-depth look from that side in this past year. And like I've said before, it allows for a deeper conversation of what are we seeing. And growers like clean fields, and we have got some weed resistance in this area. And we had a couple of cases where in the back portion of a field there was a half dozen resistant weeds that had escaped. And one of our team identified, called the grower and says, "Hey, you've got some weeds in the backside of the field," and he immediately went out there and pulled them. And so I think it's the additional stuff that you just don't see from the road. And as Tim and Randy has said, especially after that crop starts getting some size to it.
No, absolutely. I think it changes what you're able to do and how much you can see. And I think every day we're learning together with you. And I should remind the audience that while we design new functionality and new capabilities every day and ways to do this, whether it's how to acquire high resolution imagery across millions of acres scalably. Yep, we've got systems, we've got partners, we're able to do it. And we've done a lot of other things in terms of inventions around training and working with machine learning and artificial intelligence. But I bring this up because the technology is changing so quickly and getting so much better that you're able to literally change how you're working. And that's not always easy, but I think the fruits are really there. I look to other industries for parallels, and maybe, Tim, we haven't talked about this, but it's just a thought that came to mind as I'm hearing Brian speak. When you get your car worked on these days, I don't know about you, but I'm getting text messages and images and links and video messages from my mechanic and my service manager. And hey, the oil looks good, but on your wife's car, you might want to check out, here's what I'm thinking about the tires or things around the engine, and there's videos, and I can make decisions in a moment. That didn't replace my mechanic or my dealer, made them better, makes me want to work better. But I can tell you, when my wife wants to replace that car or add a car, that's a big differentiator because service is what really matters. So when you look at agriculture, Tim, what are some of the things that have held us back? Why do people outside of agriculture think we're not as advanced in those things? And how do you look to the future? Do you see us getting to that place where we're able to have those kinds of interactions in real time with our customers and make quicker decisions? And what do you think when you look outside the industry and in the industry, Tim?
Well, I think if you look at society overall, we became an instant society. I mean, this magical phone thing, we get data or questions answered right away. When it comes to raising crops, if we're the ones, say the people on this call, if we're notifying you today, hey, you got a problem in your field, whatever you want to call it, John Brown. And I've seen some questions, do you replace a consultant? No, we're not replacing consultants. If we know that farmer has a consultant and we know he checked the northeast corner, but he's got a problem in the southwest section, we get a hold of the farmer and the consultant. Hey, you need to go walk this. We're seeing issues. And to your point, that all goes to service. If you wait 5 or 6 days, then you've got extensive damage. So being able to provide that grower with instant information within 24 to 48 hours after a flight, I'll give a little time frame there. That's invaluable. That is invaluable, because then he knows exactly what's going on in his fields. And especially when insects are moving and those type things. So to your point on the service, yeah, we do get overload with text messages, but we all prioritize what text we do look at. And this would be where you get to the top of the priority list on that one. So I don't think the instant society is going away at all.
No, we need to be quicker but substantive and have real value. And when you have leaf level capture that's scalable and in the palm of your hands and in your grower's hands, when you have the freedom to share that with your grower, then you're talking about what really matters. And that's protecting their crops, their legacy, and making sure that they get the return on the investment that they have, not only in their crop, but in you. So I think with that, Larry, I'm going to advance the slides here. And I want to say a special thank you to our panelists here, particularly Central Valley Ag, Pride Ag Resources, and Pearl City Elevator. It's really been enlightening. We're going to be doing more of this here in the future, just to understand how are we using this technology to tackle the issues that we see in the acre, and how is it really changing the way we work? Where are the opportunities? So again, Brian, Tim, and Randy, from Taranis to you, thank you very much for your time today. And Larry, I'm going to turn this over to you and say thank you as well for the opportunity to share this with the audience.
All right. Thank you very, very much. Guys did a great job and very informative. Very, very well done. I want to thank everybody for attending the webinar, and I want to thank Taranis for presenting it. And thanks to Taranis' Mike DiPaolo for moderating this excellent discussion. Great job, Mike, you're a natural. And if you'd like to watch the webinar on demand or just check on different parts of it, it will be archived and available with the same link you used to get on today. And you'll also receive a reminder of the archive by email tomorrow that will have the link in it. Also, as I mentioned earlier, you can receive your CEU credit by scanning the QR code currently on your screen with your mobile device. Once scanned, the app will automatically sign you in. Once again, thank you for joining us today. Thanks to our presenters, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.